This is Land of Havilah, Isaiah 15. This chapter is only 9 verses, and the next one's only 14 verses. It seems to your narrator that they should be one chapter because there doesn't seem to be any break in subject material. It's one continuous prophecy that the nation called Moab will be invaded and devastated. Moab was on the opposite side of the Dead Sea from Judah, plainly visible from Judah, just 10 miles across the sea. The last verse of the prophecy says it will come to pass within 3 years. The fulfillment came during Isaiah's lifetime when the Assyrian Empire invaded Moab, 734 to 732 BC. The prophecy cites location after location in Moab, many of which we can still pinpoint on a map today. Some of them still go by the same name. The Israelites considered the Moabites to be their distant relatives because they were descended from Abraham's nephew Lot, Genesis 19, 37 and 38. But generally there was no love lost between them because they had many wars. Nevertheless, the tone of the prophecy is sympathetic. In verse 5, quote, "My heart cries out for Moab," end quote. Verse 1 calls the prophecy the burden of Moab, also translated an oracle concerning Moab. It was a burden and dread to know what was coming. Verse 1. The burden of Moab, for in a night Ar of Moab is laid waste and brought to nothing, for in a night Kir of Moab is laid waste and brought to nothing. They've gone up to Baith and to Dibon, to the high places, to weep. Moab wails over Nebo and over Medeba. Baldness is on all of their heads. Every beard is cut off. Comment in verses 1 and 2, the Moabite cities Ar and Kir will be laid waste in one night. Moabites will go up to their high places, which means to the tops of hills where they worship their gods. They'll weep before their gods because of the destruction. Nebo in verse 2 is the high mountain where Moses died, Genesis 32:49. Medeba in verse 2 is now Medaba, Jordan. The Moabites will shave their heads and beards in mourning in verse 2. All the names coming up are Moabite locations or their nearby locations where some will be able to escape. Verse 3. In their streets they clothe themselves in sackcloth. In their streets and on their housetops everyone wails, weeping abundantly. Heshbon cries out with Eleah. Their voice is heard even to Jahaz. Therefore the armed men of Moab cry aloud. Their souls tremble within them. My heart cries out for Moab. Her nobles flee to Zoar, to Eglath, Shelishiah, for they go up by the ascent of Luhith with weeping, for on the way to Horonaim they raise up a cry of destruction. For the waters of Nimrim will be desolate, for the grass is withered away, the tender grass fails, there is no green thing. Therefore they will carry away the abundance they've gotten, and that which they've stored up over the brook of the willows. For the cry has gone around the borders of Moab, its wailing to Eglaim, and its wailing to Beer Elim. For the waters of Dimon are full of blood, for I'll bring yet more on Dimon, a lion on those of Moab who escape, and on the remnant of the land. Comment in verses 3 to 9 we just read, Moab is in panic, in mourning, and there's desperation to survive. It could only be a foreign invasion. In verses 3 and 4, everyone wails, the armed men tremble in their souls. The nobles are trying to escape in verse 5, so it's a collapse of the kingdom. They carry away their abundance in verse 7, meaning Moabites carry their valuables with them as they evacuate. They carry them over the brook of the willows, also translated brook of poplars or brook of Arabs, which seems to be on the southern border. As they cross over, they leave Moab behind. But in verse 9, God will send a lion on those of Moab who escape and on the remnant of the land, so whether they stay in place or try to escape, they're still at risk of being killed. God is the author of their destruction. He's the one who's sending the lion, but he's also the one weeping over them in verse 5. Isaiah 16 is next.